I'm Suzanne Murdoch, MD and co-founder of the Hub Newbury, and welcome to Series 4 of the Powering Productivity podcast. Each episode, I explore the stories and insights of SME co-working and flexible workspace operators from around the globe, focusing particularly on regional and neighbourhood spaces and the communities that they drive forward. I chat around the inclusivity, genuine connections, clarity and purpose, and positive impacts that they bring. So let's get started. Welcome back to the Powering Productivity podcast for micro business leaders and neighbourhood co-working operators who really want to lead with heart, stay people first, and build thriving businesses with the time, the energy, and the capacity that they actually have, rather than the unrealistic expectations the world keeps putting on us. So whether this is your first listen or you've been with us for a while, you're very welcome. Today, I am joined by the lovely Melissa Richards, founder of Buick Mackane, a creative co-working meeting and event space in the heart of Newbury, founded just over 4 years ago in the midst of COVID. So in this episode, we'll be talking around what it really takes to create a neighbourhood co-working space as an introverted founder, building confidence in your own way, finding that balance between corporates, freelancers, and local micro business owners, and keeping both the vibe and the cash flow steady. It's a conversation about quiet strength, real connection, and creating workspaces that really put people, not just the profit, at the heart of everything we do. So Melissa, you're very welcome. Tell me a little bit about yourself and how you've come to found Buick Mackane.
Sure. Well, I founded Buick Mackane as nearly 5 years ago now. And up until that time, I was in a completely different field. So I worked freelance, providing market insight to food manufacturers. So something completely different. But what I had done is used co-working spaces a lot during those 10 or so years. And what I'd found was that I couldn't really find a space that I wanted to work in, quite frankly. So I'd moved from corporate, big company to small art studios, and then I'd bounce myself back home. I'd have a desk for a number of months, even years, but then it wasn't quite right. Again, I'd be at home. And so it was during those years and during that time that I felt that there could be a place, a different kind of place that I would like to work in. So that's how I came to set up Buick. It was a purely personal decision. It wasn't a kind of a business move or anything like that. I think it was also about my time of life. I was a little bit older. My son was around 10 years old, and I felt like I didn't want to retire, still just doing my freelance work, and I wanted something different. And I felt that this could be it.
It's similar to so many other operators I've spoken to, that it's either a particular time in life when you've had children, you're coming back, maybe you've lost connection with people, but it's always very serendipitous. It's getting more of that belonging feeling.
I think it is.
More sense of connection.
Yeah, absolutely. I felt like, so for 10 years after having my son, I'd worked freelance. So I'd worked from home, but I'd never had a business, an office. I never felt part of a community because I was working on my own. And even when I was working in an office, it wasn't in this area. So I didn't know anybody in the small market town that I'm in. So I never felt I'd really built up a community, if you like, of friends or anything like that. I didn't belong, as you'd said. So I think a lot of it was about creating that community, again, purely selfishly for myself, that I could be part of. But I felt like there must be other people that wanted that too.
Yeah, no, I completely get that. That's essentially why we set ours up in around 2012.
Yeah.
But why, or was it in the midst of COVID? Had COVID started when you were thinking about this?
Yeah, it was. And I mean, I'd been thinking about setting this up for quite a while, and I thought about opening somewhere on a brownfield site out of town with shipping containers, and I'd gone down lots of different avenues. And I'd spent quite a bit of time researching that and realised that actually that wasn't going to work. And I think And I think what actually spurred me on was that I had whispers that somebody else was going to be opening a co-working space in town. And then I got all frightened and thought, oh my goodness, they're gonna get there before me. And I got really competitive about it. And I thought, right, I'm gonna do it now. And so I did. And it just happened to be at that time. I think probably at that time there was a lot of talk about co-working. And so other people were thinking about setting it up from a business perspective, I think from a financial perspective, whereas I'd been thinking about it for quite a long time, and not done anything about it because it's hard, it's a big leap to do it, particularly taking on a commercial premises. But yeah, hearing those little whispers that somebody else was doing it. And then I've thought, actually, maybe this is a good time from a business perspective because people were forced to work at home. And when I set it up, I thought we were coming out of COVID, but actually we had another year to go. So it wasn't intentional to set up a business because at that particular time, because actually that first year was very hard. We went back into, I think it was Omicron at the time, another variant that stuck in my head. And so everybody was forced back home. So yeah, so it was very hard.
Yeah, but how did you navigate that with the second lockdown and I guess financially as well?
I was still working freelance. So, and I've only recently given that up. So only about a year ago now, I'd stopped the freelance for about the first 3 months of setup. So from about March to September. And I think that's when COVID started coming back and I had the opportunity to take on more freelance work. So I did. And that's how I managed to keep the place going and navigate the fact that actually it was much, much quieter than I would have hoped. And actually, that continued, as I said, for probably 3.5, 4 years, having that balance between trying to keep financially the place going, but also not wanting to give it up. So,
did that shape the community that you built initially? The types of like the member makeup that you attracted?
I think the nature, I didn't purposefully go after a certain type of person, although in hindsight, I probably should have. I just took anybody that said they wanted a space. I'd say, yes, you can come in here and you can work here. And I know now that doesn't work, but at the time, it was how I think a lot of small business founders operate, in that they just want to say yes to everybody. You're too scared to turn anybody down. But I think the design of the place, the way that I'd set it up actually attracted and does attract people like me, I suppose, people that want a more creative space to work in, people that don't want a corporate surroundings, that want to be energized by more colourful surroundings, a little bit quirky, a little bit eccentric. We have had people that come in here and say, no, it's not for me. We'd rather go to Regis because it's more corporate. And that's fine. Absolutely. So yeah, not purposefully, but I think the design of the building did go a lot of the way to attracting the type of people that have made this such a great community.
So tell us a little bit about the design and the community that you have there.
Well, the design of the building, again, it was, nothing purposeful or strategic about it. It was very organic. What I do is, it was wanting something bright, something quirky. And first of all, just coming up with a name and a logo and some colours. That was the very first on my website. And finding a great artist who could come up, first of all, with a mural. That was the first thing that's now on my website. And I think from that, I came up with the colour scheme and very organically decided, we were going to have bright colours throughout. I did actually employ an interior designer as well, just to come up with some 3D designs of just 2 rows is all I could afford at the beginning, just so people could get a sense of what the space was going to be like before I'd actually opened. So I think it was those 2 things. The designer really helped. The artist really helped. I had an illustrator who designed the logo. So just a combination of all of those things really really luckily came together.
And I
And
love it. I mean, I've only seen it on the website, but it looks
yeah,
so welcoming. It really does look
yeah,
people focused, which is what you talk
yeah,
about, and
yeah,
really quirky. And I love the video you have about showing people. It's actually you walking through the space and talking about it.
yeah. Again, that came about quite luckily, by somebody who was working here who wanted to test their videoing skills. So they offered to do that for me. And that's, that's part of co-working, isn't it? You bump into these people that have got all sorts of skill sets that are fantastic. So yeah.
Absolutely. And then I guess if we move on to, you mentioned their balancing cash flow, especially
Mhm.
around the whole COVID side of things. How do you manage that need to have the steady income and really staying true to your values at the same time with the members and what might be going on behind the scenes?
Yeah, I think the cash flow thing has been tricky, really, really tricky. And if it wasn't for the freelance, I don't think I would still be here because I wouldn't have been able to afford it. Because although for most of the time it has been paying its costs, and there hasn't been a lot left over after that. So if I'd had to rely on this place to pay the mortgage and to pay all the bills, then I wouldn't have been able to do that without the freelance. And I think I realized actually in hindsight, this is why my lack of planning and research probably shows, is that actually just having a space with hot desking, communal working and meeting space financially doesn't work or hasn't worked. And that I needed the security of more long-term contracts. And that brought me to think about private offices.
Yeah.
If I was doing this again, I would have a space mixed with communal working and private and more private office space. We have one private office space in my first building, but that's not enough to provide the security of income. So that led me to think last year, probably a couple of years ago, that I needed some private office space, but I couldn't really accommodate it in the building that I'm in. And so that led me to finding a second site last year. Took on almost a year to come to fruition, but that we opened at the beginning of this year in January. And that has 11 separate private office spaces. And that's when I've given up the freelance. First of all, I couldn't do the freelance and operate two sites. But secondly, the intention is that the private office does give the security of income that I need, that enables me to live off, that can cope with the ebbs and flows of the communal working, which, for example, in holidays is very quiet. Yeah, the corporates in the private office are there every month.
Yeah, I was about to say, how is the member makeup very different in the private offices to the open plan areas?
I think there's similar kinds of people who want something different. So that's again, we have big corporate co-working offerings. So we have a Regis in the town, and that has loads of private office space there, but it is very corporate, which suits some people but doesn't suit other people. So the second building that I've got is a very similar vibe to this. It's a much older, it's a 500-year-old building. It's full of beams. It's really quirky. It comes with the foibles of an older building, so it's not for everybody. And so I think we have a similar type of person that comes there, but there are some bigger groups of people because we have bigger office spaces. So there tends to be more team up there that we don't have here. Here in the communal workspace, it tends to be individuals or people that work maybe with one other person.
And is there like a sweet spot between consistency and that creativity side of you? In like a cash flow sense, and maybe the events you put on, etc., that sort of thing.
I think in an ideal world, as I said, it's having the private office space mixed in with the communal working. I think what I found with the private office space in isolation in our other site is that it's very quiet up there. And because everybody's in their own individual offices, whereas in this communal space that I'm in here today, it's much more of a buzz with individuals coming back and forth, using the kitchen, using the lounge. And so in an ideal world, I think it'd be great to have both together because I think the guys in the private office would like it to be a bit more buzzy. And I've got a great lounge up there that nobody uses because they're all in their own spaces. So yeah, in an ideal world, it would be great to have both together. And also to have an event space. I mean, if we're talking ideal, what I would love is to have private offices, communal working, and a space that could be used for events. But at the moment, what I have been doing is moving desks out of one of our biggest rooms to put the events on. So that in itself can become a bit of a headache.
Oh,
But
I know. Yeah, I've experience with that too. But I guess the private office spaces essentially give you that freedom to put your creativity into things that really spark your energy and help the community as a whole.
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm still not there with getting the private office space up to the utilization that I would like, but we're almost there. But that definitely means the cash flow is coming in. That, as you say, I'm then not worrying every month about how we're going to pay the bills. It's then about, right, I can spend more time making it a better place to work in. And that's all about bringing people together, really, and looking at different ways of doing that.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And how do you balance those different types of members? So you've got freelancers, local businesses, perhaps a few corporate remote workers or teams that have, from my experience, have very different requirements. And can come from a different sort of culture. How do you balance the culture and the requirements of the member bases?
It's very different, and I hadn't appreciated that to start with, but having had a few corporate groups working in the communal space, I realized that they actually don't want to interact with anybody else, really. They've got their team of 6 or 7 or however many it is, and they're just quite happy to chat amongst themselves. What it means is that my job, therefore, is to encourage them to mix with the other members and to make them part of the community and not just a group that comes in and out and doesn't really interact with anybody else. So that's generally my job anyway, I think, is about bringing everybody together. And I just see that as another element of that, but just working with a bigger group. And it's harder because there's more of them, and you've got to break them out of their silo that they're used to working in. So I think ways I found of doing that were putting up breakfasts on here at the office, for instance. So, telling everybody we're having a free breakfast, come on down, come and have something to eat, the cake. And you really have to, we were talking about it earlier, but you really have to push people. You have to go up to them and almost drag them out of their chairs, because people naturally will just sit there and not come along. I don't know whether it's a British thing, a cultural thing. They think they haven't got time. So the host, my job is to drag them out of their chairs, bring them downstairs, have a coffee, but also things like quizzes. We've done quite a few of those and encourage those other team to put a team in and get them to come out on socials. You physically have to plant yourself in front of them at their desk and even guilt them into coming along. That's the job, really.
I think a lot of people actually are naturally quite shy, and they want to be working in a community, but they also like their private space.
Yeah.
And they like knowing that people are around them if they need them.
Yeah.
So, but they're naturally a bit hesitant.
Yeah, I agree.
Bigger groups.
I agree. And I'm the same. I think, if you put me into a space like that, I wouldn't be the one that walks into the kitchen and gets the coffee and the breakfast. I would probably be sat there until someone kind of cajoled me, especially if I'm there working on my own. So, so I get that completely. And I think you're right. I think most people actually feel a little bit uncomfortable about doing that. And so therefore our job is to make them feel comfortable and to make the introduction so that they're not stood there on their own. And I think you're constantly thinking about, oh, well, they do this and so does that. So if I introduce them and tell them that they play the guitar, then I know that they play the drums, and then, there'll be a conversation around music. I think you're constantly collecting little snippets of information and trying to remember them and bring them out at the right time.
And it's kind of laying the foundations for that place where people feel like we spoke a bit earlier, so they feel like there's that sense of belonging and they can build that trust, because they're not going to open up instantaneously. It does take time. And
Yeah.
they might come down to the initial event and not say much,
Yeah.
but bit by bit, you'll feel that,
Oh, yeah.
that, they found their space and that they feel
That's
a little more
right.
comfortable.
Yeah, definitely. We have had a few people here who've been very, very quiet to start with, and it's taken months actually for them, even if they're coming in every day. But gradually people start opening up, and that's a lovely thing to see. Really nice.
Yeah. And then they contribute so much more.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, one of the guys we've had in here for a long, long time to start with, he's very quiet, and I wasn't sure it was going to work for him, but now he's one of the guys who makes the most connections with other people, just as he feels that this is a safe space for him, then people can sense that and and start building relationships.
And then actually quite often we've found, because we've got quite a consistent member makeup of people who started off with us from 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And we've also found that a lot of the time they're coming to us wanting to put on events or
Yes.
start projects together. So we're working with Bractors on a whole sustainability project
Right. Yes.
side of things at the moment, which works brilliantly, and it's a great collaboration to have.
Yeah, I think that's right. You do get people. I had one of my members the other day. She's only been here 3 or 4 months, but she's Australian, and she used to do cacao ceremonies in Australia. So she said, "Oh, do you think we could put one on here?" So we're now got a space in my other site. So we're now doing a cacao ceremony over Christmas on the winter solstice, I think. So
what's that involved? Tell me a little bit about
do you know what? I don't really know much about cacao ceremonies myself, but I was talking to somebody downstairs and they said they're amazing. It's kind of a meditative thing, I think, and there's some drumming. So a bit like a sound bar or a gong bar type of vibe, I think. I think it depends who's running it. They can be different. But there is part of the ceremony is drinking this cacao mixture.
That's worth it alone.
I know, exactly. So, which is quite warming, but I think can be about self-reflection. It depends on the dynamic and who's leading the group. But the winter solstice is the 20th of December, I think. So it's 2 hours of really quiet time to take stock before the Christmas madness hits.
Oh, we all enjoy that.
I think that's what I need.
So we touched on members who might be a little bit introverted, but I know we've spoken ourselves, but we've definitely more introverted founders.
Yeah.
And you've described yourself like that. How has that shaped your leadership style and how you founded Buick when you reflect back on that?
I think when one says, "Oh, I'm introverted," that they would think, "Well, why are you opening and running a co-working space then? That sounds completely ridiculous." But I think it's slightly misunderstood in that I feel like I'm a great host and I'm a great connector, as we've spoken about bringing people together. But actually, I do struggle sometimes when I'm in a group of people that I don't know. And I find it takes a lot out of me to bring myself up to talk in those circumstances. But hosting and connecting people is a different kettle of fish. And I love doing that. And I think for me, this is I finally found the perfect job. But it still takes a lot of energy and it can be exhausting. And I think I realize I do need to take time to be on my own to recharge the batteries. Now, I'm not good at doing that and I need to do that more. But it does take a lot out of you.
I completely get that. And I think the key word there is energy.
Yeah.
And I did a bit, to go back to COVID, I did a bit of discovery work on the whole human design and found out I was what you call split definition, 2 and 4.
Okay.
And I'm not quite sure how this overlaps with being introverted, but
yeah,
it was very much telling me that I love my time alone and self-reflection.
Yeah.
But too much time on my own, I realised I also need to connect with others and very much balance those two out.
Yeah.
So if I have to go to a conference, for example, I find that very overwhelming because there's so many people. I love small groups, one-on-one.
Yeah.
And I will go to the conferences, but I know that I have to manage that energy and take time out beforehand as well as afterwards.
And after, I think that's it. I think I'm exactly the same, because we were talking earlier that I had a group in this morning, a collective that I've started to bring people who started a business together. But I know now, after that, I will be exhausted. And actually, I just need to go up to my other site, sit in one of the quiet rooms up there and just recharge, because I know I will struggle otherwise. I will, I'll be around this communal space, but I won't be able to achieve anything, because my battery for being around people is right down there.
Yeah, and you really have to have those boundaries.
Yeah, yeah,
And you have to know the trigger signs, I think,
yeah,
of when you're declining slightly.
yeah. And I think the hard thing is as well that I feel sometimes guilty about taking myself away to do that. I think that's the thing as well. There's a pressure I feel, I put it on myself, that you need to be around. I need to be around these people all the time, but I know that's not the case. But it's I have to tell myself that very strictly sometimes.
But I think there's a couple of things there. As long as they know where you are and that you're
Yeah.
not too far away,
Yeah,
is
yeah.
number one. What's number two is just completely gone out of my mind. I'll come back
Yeah,
for that. Oh,
yeah.
yes. The other one was having champions around you. So the beauty
Yeah.
of being in a co-working space
Yeah.
is generally there's people that know you very, very well
Yeah,
and can actually see before you see those trigger signs where you need to just tweak something. You know,
yeah,
your energy is quite low, and feeling comfortable that they can tell you or
Yeah.
offer a bit of help.
I think that's definitely the case. But also, the guys that are here will just take over when I'm not here,
Yeah.
which is brilliant. You know, you were talking about members that have been here a long time, and even people who've just been here a few months. I think it's lovely, and they just look after the place. I was away in Paris last weekend, and there was a big group in one of the meeting rooms who'd not been here before. So they'd gone. And the cleaner was going to come in later and clean up, but they'd left, you know, meeting stuff around. And the guys downstairs had gone up and said, "Oh, did you know, those people had left a real mess, so we all went in and cleaned it up for you." And I was like, "We didn't need to do that. The cleaner was coming," but they didn't know that. And it was just, you know, that just typifies really how they look after the building, and it's not just a workplace.
We had a lovely conversation yesterday on Bernie Mitchell's Unreasonable Hospitality meetup with different smaller operators. And the question that we were talking about was very much, you know, we hold, as operators, we hold so much space for members in the community, but who's got our back? Who's holding space for us? Especially this time of year with Christmas coming up, when there's lots of to-do lists and events, etc.
Yeah.
Who's helping us with our energy?
Yeah.
And there's only so much we can physically do.
Yeah.
And just on an ongoing basis, if you can't necessarily, you don't have the budget to employ a team member. What are different ideas? And one of them that came up was, there's members around you that you know so well and would be only too happy to help, even if it means downing their member fees each month just a little bit. And briefing them on what might need done and what to look out for. It's a really simple way of helping each other out.
It is, yeah. And it was just in the startup meeting that I was in this morning, people were talking about having an extended team. And I think that's something I've started a bit. There is, doing exactly what you said. There's a guy who has some reduction in his fees. There's a couple of people actually who help me. But what I don't do is use them as much as I could. You definitely need to do that and take that on board and be strict with yourself.
Yeah. Well, it comes back to those boundaries, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Which is easier said than done sometimes.
It is, but yeah.
So I guess when we look at co-working to others, it seems like we're all extroverts and we look really confident on the outside. But it does take quite a bit of courage to keep showing up and keeping that energy consistent. So how do you navigate things like when self-doubt comes in, or you talk about comparing yourself when you initially started to another co-working operator that was going to open up? How do you get over those hurdles?
I think I realized you can't compare yourself to anybody, or not in a critical manner, I think. And I think I was doing that definitely to start with. I was afraid, oh, if somebody else opens the co-working space, I'm never going to survive. But I think, again, this is easier said than done. You have to realize that if you created something good, then people will come. And you just have to keep doing it. Consistency. You've just got to keep doing it. And so it may not work the first time. And again, I think I'm still trying to learn that if you set up an event and you only get 1 or 2 people, then that's fine. Just try again, maybe tweak it. It doesn't matter. And we were talking earlier, but it's taken me 4 years to set up this startup collective that we mentioned because of that self-doubt, because, oh, what if I set it up and only one person turns up or nobody turns up? Even worse, just one rather than nobody.
Put you on the spot. You've got to do all the talking.
Yes, because then, it's out there that you've set something up and only one person has turned up. So I think I've just realized that you've just got to try it. And it doesn't matter if only one person turns up. People generally are nice and will accept that. And it's not going to be a problem. It's not going to be the end of your business, but you have to keep doing it. Yeah. And you have to believe that ultimately, if you're consistent, something good will come out of it. And it may not be the original thing that you started, but it might evolve. But if you don't do it, you'll never know.
And you know what? I've heard that message between yesterday and today. I've heard 4 people say exactly that. If you've got an idea, just try it.
Yeah.
It's not a mistake. You're always going to learn.
That's it. I've just really probably in the last year, I've got a bit more space now not doing the freelance. So I think I used the freelance as an excuse not to do any of these things because I had the freelance work. So I didn't have time to do any of these things that make me feel vulnerable, i.e. starting up networking groups or anything like that. So I'd not been doing the freelance now for a year and gave myself a kick up the bum probably in the last 3 or 4 months and thought, yeah, you need to start doing this now. So I've got more things to think about doing in the new year. But again, it takes that energy to rise yourself up, to actually put it out into the world. I have to be in the right frame of mind, put it out into the world, hit send or whatever it is. And then I realized once you've done that, it's fine. I think a lot of it is the thinking about it and preparing it. But once it's done, once it's out there, it's fine.
Yeah, and I think it's baby steps. You don't have to do anything overnight, and you can take your time. Be patient, especially when your energy might be a bit inconsistent.
Yeah.
As long as you're moving forward a little bit each day, I think it's about baby steps. And keep on showing up in your own way, but your own way is your own way. It's not somebody else's.
I think that's it. And I think you have to take that as well, because I've had a lot of feedback about the startup collective. Oh, why don't you do this, get speakers, do this, get experts, blah, blah, blah. I really feel like, oh, that's a bit too much for me to think about at the moment. And then you have to take a step back and, as you say, be strict about what you yourself can accommodate. And maybe a little bit of stretch. Of course, we all need to do something to move forwards, but take it at your pace, I think. But I've started it now. It's that kind of frame of mind. I've started it. We've had 2 meetings. Next year we'll move on, but that's great for now.
And also listening to what your members need.
Yeah.
Because they might not even suggest things outright, but you can kind of read between the lines to whether they're interested and whether it will float other people's boat.
Yeah, exactly. I think you do have to be a bit of a mind reader as well. Certainly, I have a suggestion box, but again, maybe a British thing. People are reluctant to suggest things, particularly constructive things that are not working. I think people are, we used to allow people to take calls in the communal workspace right at the beginning, again, because I was too afraid to say no to anybody doing anything. But actually realizing it, there was a point where I was getting people who weren't coming back. And when I suggested that it might be the level of noise, they said, oh, yes, it was a bit noisy in there, but they wouldn't outright say it's too noisy. Even when you kind of emailed them and asked, you have to, it's people are a bit shy about coming forward with things that are not working. So you have to, as you say, read between the lines and be a bit of a mind reader. Yeah.
Although I've actually, we were talking about earlier about doing surveys, and I found
Yes.
that gives them more options,
Yeah.
not to be
Yeah.
too rude, but to
Yeah. I
say
think,
what's
and
bothering them or what could be improved.
I think that's a good idea, and I definitely do that. And people, it's a bit, you remove yourself, don't you, from what they're putting. You're not directly asking them in front of them. So
Yeah, and they can be anonymous as well if you want.
yeah, I think that's the thing. I think also, and I know this, that people sense that this is my baby. This is, this is my thing. They don't want to offend me by saying that something's not working.
Yeah, completely. So when we talk about community in real life, Melissa, what have been some of the most, I guess, unexpected and rewarding moments that you've had in Buick and connection?
I think it's the little things. There's no big event or anything that I would say, wow, that was amazing. But what is so lovely is when I hear about people getting together outside of work that met here. I love that. They didn't know each other before, but they found something in common and now they're going to the pub. I love that. Just hearing about, there's a lady, who does she does some DJing and some events in London at the weekend, and you'd never guess that from her. She works or has laws in cybersecurity or something anyway. But one of the other guys that I mentioned earlier plays the drums in his spare time. And anyway, I found out that he was playing at one of her event because of the connection that they'd made here. And it's it's those little things. One of the other members had said, oh, I've ditched my old accountant because I'm going to use your accountant that comes here because it's really nice to speak to somebody in person. And I love those moments.
Oh, I like that. That's lovely. It's in the little moments, very
It
much
is.
so.
It is. And
the
it's
relationships.
It is. And I've just left the startup collective this morning, and to see, I had to leave before everybody'd gone, but they're all hanging around because they're swapping cards and, oh, we must catch up. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's what would spark my energy, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it
definitely.
does. Yeah. Yeah.
So where can people find out more about you and Buick?
So my website is buickmackane.co.uk, and that's Buick spelled Buick, Mackane spelled Mackane. I'm also on LinkedIn and on Instagram, buick.mackane.newbury. So those 3 avenues are where people can find out more about what I'm doing.
Fab. And we'll put all of that in the show notes.
Lovely.
So thank you so much for your time and sharing your story. It's been fantastic. And I love all the honesty as well about personalities and how that's reflected in business.
Yeah.
Across the board. And it's not just for co-working operators, for small business, just generally.
Yeah.
And I think what shines through for me is how neighbourhood co-working and independent operators really do have their place in the whole co-working industry. And I think it's just going to grow more and more.
Yeah.
So for those who are listening in, either running a local hub or micro business, who sometimes feel like you're carrying too much, I hope that's reminded you that you're not on your own. The spaces and the people behind them are really full of positivity, creativity and care. So if you'd like a gentle reset, you can find my free guide, The Quiet Reset, 7 Signs You're Quietly Carrying Too Much. I'll put that in the show notes. Thank you for tuning into the podcast. Until next time, keep leading with clarity, care and heart. Bye for now. Don't forget that all the episodes and links are out there on our website, thehubnewry.com. While you're there, you can stay tuned in with what we're up to by joining our newsletter and subscribing to Powering Productivity on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks again for being here. Powering Productivity is presented by me, Suzanne Murdoch, and produced by Emily Crosby Media.